recording this the 11th of May, 5:05 afternoon. So pretty much we have me and Nolan back on the pod. We're joined today. We know we've been having a lot of guests. Today we're joined by Shwinnypooh from the Strickland. Great publication. If you guys are looking for Knicks content, because you guys are diehard Knicks fans. So Swin, we wanted to talk about like the Knicks current road trip in LA. They picked one up against the Clippers. They have one against tonight against the Lakers. How do you feel about the game? The Clippers game, we had Reggie shooting the shit out the ball, 24 points. We had Derrick Rose coming off the bench, relieving Elfrid Payton of his duties. How do you feel about the Clippers game and the importance of the LA game?
I mean, the Clippers game, I thought that was the best one of the season.
Agreed.
For sure.
I thought it was a full strength Clippers team pretty much, other than Ibaka, which who cares? We haven't had Mitch forever. No Burks, no Quickly. It was pretty shorthanded rotation, and I mean, they outplayed them. And yeah, I mean, they turned the game ugly. They slowed it down. They got them in a half-court game, and they beat them at it. So, shout out to the Knicks, because when we played them last time, they just lit us up for like whatever it was, 130 or something like that. And Kawhi, he gave RJ work, and I thought RJ did really great on him. So RJ was great on defense. I mean, the whole team was great on defense, to be honest. But I can't say enough. I thought RJ and Bullock were just amazing on defense, and I truly mean that. Like, I thought they were incredible on defense that game.
Oh yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. Like RJ specifically on Kawhi, like up until that fourth quarter, Kawhi had nothing going, and I mean, he had his like highest points total in a while, but it took him a lot of shots to get there. RJ really made him work for pretty much everything all night.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
And the dope thing about that game too, because Randall didn't have the best offensive night until he had to close it out, and with the double teams and everything, it is good to see our guys shooting the ball, man. Like RJ's 3-point shot, we talk about it all the time. RJ's shot on this pod, and that has bettered the team, because when Randall is getting attention, which now that you're starting to see, like we're getting down to the stretch, so teams are starting to throw on that playoff defense, and Randall's seen all types of coverages. We see like in the Suns game, and he's seen all types of coverages, so it's dope to see the other guys participate. I also wanted to talk about with the absence of Burks and Quickly, Frank has been getting minutes during this road trip. I have yet again, Frank has not delivered on that, and especially offensively, we really needed his offensive punch during that Suns game in particular, and the Nuggets game. So I don't know if you're like most Knicks fans or you're just done with him, because I've heard a few of your takes on Frank. How do you feel about Frank, man? And is this the end of the road for him, or what's going on, bro?
I mean, it might be the end of the road for him in New York, but I don't really know what people expect. Like, he hasn't played at all. Then you just kind of throw him in the rotation against the best teams in the NBA, basically, or some of them. And I actually thought he was fine against Phoenix. I don't know why people were so pissed off about that game. I thought his defense was really good in the first half, and then in the second half, okay, he missed a shot, and they didn't use him to defend the point of attack, which he had been doing in the first half, which he did well. So I don't know. Like, he came in, the entire team was crapping its pants. I didn't really take much of that. Obviously, the 2 air balls to start the Clippers game weren't great. Yeah. Then he hits a 3. Then he took a step back or a sidestep 3. He missed that, but it was like fine. I didn't mind it. I don't know. Like, I don't think he played great or anything, but I didn't think he was terrible. Like, I just don't really know kind of how to grade him on he's played like a total, I think, of like 13 minutes on this road trip after not playing for I don't know how long. I mean, I know he's played like some garbage time minutes, but I'm talking about real minutes. He hasn't played real minutes since, I don't know, I want to say like March. So it's like when Knox comes in, and sure, like sometimes, he'll come in garbage time and he'll just start chucking. I don't really care for that. But like when he comes in during real minutes, he hasn't played in God knows how long. And I just don't know like how to judge that. Like, okay, you come in and it's like, okay, hit open threes and like, it's just not really a great situation for them. And I don't think that's necessarily Tibbs's fault. Like the team is super competitive and every game matters and every minute matters for that. So I don't really blame those guys for if they come in and they're not looking so great, because I think it's hard. I think it's hard to like to come in and play free. That's the biggest problem is like coming in and just playing how you need to play. Yeah, like I don't really have a problem with that if Tibbs doesn't want to play those guys. My only problem with Tibbs is literally just the Alfred Payton stuff. I don't think you need him.
Yep.
And that's kind of like been my issue is people are like, well, like you want to play Frank instead of Alfred Payton. Like, sure, I do, but I also don't think it matters. Like, you don't need to play Alfred. If you cannot play Frank, and once Quickly and Burks are back, there's still no reason to play Alfred Payton. Like, it's not a Frank versus Elf thing or Frank versus whoever thing. It's just more like the only thing I really have a problem with Tibbs is Alfred Payton stuff. But just going back to Frank, like, yeah, I don't know. I think he probably just needs to end up going somewhere where, like ultimately, and people will never accept this, but like he's basically been treated terribly by this organization
Yeah.
his entire
For
career.
sure.
He hasn't really gotten the chance to just like play through mistakes without having to worry about like, oh, am I gonna lose minutes to Jared Jack? Am I gonna lose minutes to Dennis Smith Jr.? Like, if you just look at his career, we've literally brought in point guards every single year to start over him and have never actually invested in just trying to play him. And like, I actually like that Tibbs is basically like, you're not a point guard anymore. I'm making you a wing. And that's like an adjustment he has to make mentally and just kind of adapting on the court. But like, yeah, I think for him, like, go to fucking Detroit, go to Houston, go to one of these dog shit teams that's rebuilding where you'll get, minutes and a leash to just play and make mistakes and not have to look over your back every time you do. Because like, I mean, look, I just think like a guy at his size that can defend like that guy, like he has a place in the NBA. And I think like at some point it might not be until he's 24 or 25 or something. It's going to click for him in terms of just figuring out what the role is, what the team is and all that. And I mean, like, there's a lot of guys that are like this, right? Like, you look at somebody like Patrick Beverly. He didn't come back to the NBA until he was like 25 or 26.
Mhm.
Luke Richard Mbamute. I know he got really good and ended up bouncing around on like contending teams. He ultimately got hurt and like couldn't stick on. But I just think like he's, like for example, people always talk about Thibault, and Thibault is really good on defense. I think it's a little bit overstated because he can freelance a lot on a team like that, which not many guys have the freedom to do. But like Thibault's like 24. He's older than Frank by like 2 or 3 years. And I
I
just
didn't
think
realize
like,
he was that much older. Yeah.
yeah, like I just think that people give up on players like it. The problem with Frank is the Knicks took him. He was a project. They never invested in the project or had a plan for the project.
Exactly.
And they did the same thing with Knox, who I'm much more down on than Frank. But even with him, it's the same concept. Like, you can't take these project players and then have no plan and have no kind of like willingness to go through that process and like have a plan and stick to it with how you're going to get the best out of them. So, those guys, I think both of them probably end up needing a change of scenery. I think they both might get it this offseason. So, I hope that they land where they need to land and end up being good players, because they're both good kids and they both seem to work hard and seem well liked by their teammates.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to ask you about something you brought up was about how Frank is playing mostly the 2 ball now. And like, what do you think about that decision as a whole? Like, I know Fizdale did that a lot, and it seemed like Fizdale was trying to make him just have more of an attacking mindset. Do you think like that's kind of the reasoning behind him playing the 2, or is it just that he's not a good enough ball handler to be the primary point guard?
I mean, I personally think last year, if you look at the end of his third season, I've posted threads on this. I thought like Frank had actually really turned a corner, not necessarily turned a corner, but he had taken a step as a ball handler, point guard, whatever you have it. I I just don't think Tibbs likes his point guards to be able to penetrate and get into the lane consistently. And if you look at his
Right.
career, you look at all the teams he's had, he's always wanted a point guard who can get into the paint and looks to score, as kind of like, I don't want to say a first option because I don't want to make it seem like he doesn't want his point guard to pass, but he likes his point guard to be an aggressive scoring option.
Mhm.
And that's something that's been consistent with him in Chicago. That's something that, if you look at like the main point guard switch he made in Minnesota, he traded Ricky Rubio and signed Jeff Teague, who fits
Yeah.
more of that mold. So I think that the decision with Frank is more like, I think he knows that Frank's defense can be valuable, but
Mm.
he doesn't see him as a point guard. So the way to use him then for him, in his mind anyway, is like as a 2 or a 3 or whatever. So I don't really have a problem with that, to be honest. I've always thought that like Frank's versatility in that sense should be valuable because it allows you to play him in a variety of lineups and next to a variety of players. So I've never really had a problem with that. And I again, like, whatever I think about Tibbs, I think that he's been pretty consistent about how he views Frank and how he views Knox and how he generally tends to use them. So I don't have a big problem with any of that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting that you say about how Frank hasn't been treated well, because when he got drafted, I believe his rookie coach was Hornacek, and I didn't like Hornacek at all. Um, and he started Jared Jack and that whole situation, which was awful, which was awful for his development. And then the next year, with Fizdale, man, Fizdale was just like a moron and a used car salesman, and like the Moutier situation, it was entertaining for the season, I guess, right? With those moments, remember he dunked on Garrett Temple and all that jazz. It was cool or whatever, but it really hurt Frank's development. Also, Frank has been injury. Injuries has been a very big part of Frank's career with the groin multiple times. His rookie year, he got hurt with the groin. Last year, he got hurt with the groin before the COVID ending. Yeah, it's very interesting to see where Frank lands next season, because I do think it is the end of his tenure. I also wanted to talk about another young guy on the team, Obi, right? Obi got drafted. We all thought he got drafted to replace Randall before Randall had this spectacular season. A little bit of a minutes restriction. Knicks fans, you know how they are. Like, they were calling the kid trash and all. I don't think Obi is trash at all. He really turned the corner. The past few games, his 3-point shot has really turned around. How do you feel about Obi's situation and going forward? Would you think, would you involve him in any trades, or like, are you down with the development of Obi Toppin, Swin?
I mean, I'm not really opposed to trading Obi, but I wouldn't be like aggressively trying to shop him. I think he's looked pretty good of late. I think he's played like actually good ball for about a month now. And his defense is a lot better than I thought it would be. He seems really aware that defense was a weakness for him coming in and trying his best on that end. Is he a good defender yet? I don't think he's necessarily a good defender, but he's an active defender. He's definitely engaged, which that's the mode that's all you can ask for from guys. Some guys are going to be good on defense, some guys are going to be bad. As long as you're engaged and you're giving effort and you're making rotations, that's all you can ask for. And he's giving you that.
Water.
Yeah, he's giving you that. I do wish he was a little bit stronger on the glass. I think he's improved a little bit, but I think he can get better there. And I like that of late he's been more confident with his shot, like regard whether it goes in or not. I think he's shooting a little bit more freely, and he's being a little bit more active cutting, which is, and getting out in transition a little bit. So he's getting some easier points that way. But yeah, I like Obi. I think he's, he works hard, and like I think that he's at a weird development path. So I don't buy this whole thing of like he's 23, so you know if he's not coming in immediately and his gangbusters, we gotta like you know we gotta be super worried about it. Mostly, and like maybe I'd be worried if his struggles had continued all season, but they didn't. He's gotten a lot better. Like I said, I think literally for the last month. And I mean this genuinely, like he's played good basketball. So I don't think the Knicks need to rush anything. Yeah, I know it sucks that he's kind of like the backup for Randall, but let's see. Like, I think that there's a chance that, next year we'll see a little bit more willingness from Tibbs to mix him in at the 5 and maybe play those two together a little bit, and experiment more in that sense. I just think that like this year for him, I think Tibbs has been very focused on giving him minutes in a very specific role and wanting him to adapt to that role before he starts, adding layers to what he can do and what he needs to be able to get done on the basketball court.
No, for sure, for sure. I think it's important that that Knicks fans in general just stay patient with him, right? Because I think the perception with him was that he was supposed to be like a made product. He spent all those years at Dayton. He was supposed to come in and have an immediate impact. And I think I'm with you. Just because he's 23 doesn't mean that he was supposed to come in and start dominating the league. I don't think so. What do you think about that, Nolan?
Yeah, I mean, especially with him playing like a lower level of college. I mean, I know that Dayton team was a great Dayton team, and they got robbed of a chance to make a tourney run that year when they canceled because of COVID and everything. But I mean, I heard even on the Macri was talking on KFS pod just about comparing him to a player like CJ McCollum, who came from a smaller school and took a few years to develop. And I'm not saying Obi's like anywhere near as talented as CJ McCollum, but you see that he's getting better throughout the year. And I think that is just all you can really ask for. He's a hard worker. I wouldn't, like Shwin said, be eager to trade him, because I do think that the option of playing him at the 5 with Randall next year is enticing, especially if like you can't bring back Mitch and Nerlens together. But I wouldn't, like, if a trade comes up for a player like Lillard or someone like that, I would definitely not be like afraid to throw Obi into a trade like that at all.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Since the Knicks are in LA, I want to talk a little bit about the Lakers, Swin, and I wanted to ask you, pretty much, AD, he had dropped 40 something against the Suns. LeBron seems like he's not going to play this game against us. He's going to play against the Rockets on Tuesday. Uh, as far as the Lakers, dropping down to the 7th seed and losing that tiebreaker against Portland, should Laker Nation be scared? Like, should they be, not scared, but like, should they feel some type of intimidation going inside the playoffs, playing in and playing, maybe meeting up with Steph Curry in a playing game? That would be like an amazing game to watch. Do you still see them as back-to-back champions, like some guys see them, or how do you feel?
I don't know. I know AD just had a really big game against, I don't even remember who
The
who they
Suns.
played. The Suns. That was a weird game, but cool, good for him. I don't know. I don't think so. Like I'll be pretty amazed if they win, just because LeBron hasn't played. I mean, he played a little bit, right? He came back, played like a couple of games, then he sat out again. I don't think he's going to be 100% the rest of the way. I don't think AD is going to be 100%. I don't care if he had a good game against the Suns. That's one game. He can scream I'm back all he wants. He's got to string together 10, 15 games for I believe that. And then, like, I think the West is really good. And I think, like you mentioned, like, would they be favorites with LeBron back and AD back in a one-off game against the Warriors? For sure, but it's a one-off game. And when you got Steph Curry on the other side,
Yeah.
it can always blow up on you. I just think that they have to overcome so much in such a weird season. And it'd be one thing if they had missed like the first 30 games of the season and they were just playing catch up, but they were like fully, they've been playing for the last 2-3 months, right? LeBron and AD. But that's not what's happened. And they're like using meaningful games now to kind of get themselves back into the rhythm and work their fitness up and all that. And I don't like Schroeder's still out. I don't know. I just think they have so many things that need to go right for them to win that I would be surprised. And like, again, the odds are they would at least get to the actual playoffs and not just the play-in. But weird things can happen in games like that. And I don't know. I would be really amazed if they won a championship this year. Not so much because I don't believe in they have enough talent, but just the circumstances of it all make me very skeptical.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, I mean, really all does come down to health with them. And right now, there's just so many question marks. It's hard to pencil them in as favorites or anything like that. But I think, not that I love talking about the Nets or anything, but I think that's actually one of the most impressive things about their season is that through all those injuries and through like one of their best players, like all three of them never really playing together, that they're still right up there at the top of the East. I mean, I know the East isn't the West in terms of difficulty, but just the dominance they've still been able to play with has been pretty impressive on that front in comparison to the Lakers, who've looked so lost without LeBron and AD.
Yeah, I think it's important to say though they do have LeBron James, so I have doubted this man in the past, in years and years and years. He had went to the finals. The thing about it though, like you guys said, the West is just stacked this year, man. Like Utah, if they ever get that Donovan Mitchell situation right, they're looking like a threat. They're looking like a real threat. The Suns, we've seen the Suns twice this year, and you see how dominant they can be in stretches. You know, Nuggets without Jamal Murray, you're still a tough out in the playoffs. The Clippers are gonna be the Clippers. They're gonna be ready to play against the Lakers. So it's gonna be interesting to see. It's gonna be interesting to see. Another team in the West that I wanted to talk about was Dallas. Dallas had an interesting situation because during the past week and a half, Mark Cuban got on radio and was pretty much saying like, because there's been tension within the organization and especially within that fan base. You know how a fan base could be. Pretty much, KP and Luca, they haven't been, they're not really the best of friends, which we've seen that before. They come into work and they do what they have to do. It's interesting, right? Because Mark had to address that situation specifically, which is, which which raised the eyebrow to me because it's like, yo, why are you even talking about this situation in the first place? Is it really that serious? Who do you even need to calm down? And it was interesting because KP responded to that with saying, quote, "I've never had any problems with my teammates off the court. I've always gotten along with them very well. I don't know what Cuban is talking about. I try to be professional as possible." I say that to say because Dallas, they're 16 and 12 without KP. It's interesting because other guys like Tim Hardaway Jr. has stepped up. Timmy put up 24, 3 and 2, 51% on 3-point shots on 10 attempts. He's been shooting the shit out the ball. How do you feel about Dallas, in their situation with KP? We had their picks. They're going to be in the playoffs most likely, but how do you feel about that whole Dallas situation?
I guess I just I'm happy it's not us that has him. I'm happy we traded him because I saw those quotes today from KP where he's like, I don't know what Cuban was talking about.
Yeah.
That didn't sound great. Maybe it came out differently. I can't say I watched the actual interview, but the way that sounded pretty bad. I don't think that's something you say. You generally wouldn't say something like that about your team's owner, regardless of what they say. And he can deny it all he wants, but anybody with eyes and a brain knows that him and Luca are not exactly fond of each other. And Cubans address that. Like why would Cuban make that up? I think that essentially Cuban is more or less indicating that, hey, we would trade this guy, and he's trying to do it very
Discreetly.
yeah, very discreetly. And he's actually doing it in a way where he's acting as if he's not on the market. But I definitely think they shopped him. I think they at least maybe they didn't actively shop him, but they definitely listened to offers for him. And I really would be surprised. I think that they want to move off of him. I think they know that they made a mistake and that they don't really need him. Like, I don't know what their
Yeah.
record is without him, but I
They're
think
16 and 12 without him.
yeah. So it's like, okay. So, and what with him, they're like, what is that? 24 and 16 or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of that was earlier in the season when they had all this kind of COVID stuff, and they got off to a slow start. So I don't really know what that means. I just know that like frequently when you watch them play, if you just look at their forget watching them play, if you just look at their box scores after games, pretty frequently KP has the worst plus minus on the team, or he'll have the worst plus minus in the starting lineup. And if you look at their plus minus for the season, I think he's like the lowest among their rotation players, which says something. It doesn't mean that he'll never get better, but he's not been good this season. And that's what Mavs fans have been saying. That's what Mavs fans are saying. That's what they're seeing. And like I don't really like his defense is kind of shot now because he's lost his lateral agility that kind of made him unique at
Exactly.
7'3". He's he just shoots. He's a good shooter, but like he can't create his own offense very well. That was a problem for him in New York. And it continues to be one. He can't leverage his size to punish mismatches. So that lets other teams off the hook. And he doesn't have a post game. And, he wants to be something that he's not. And he thinks he's something that he's not, which is some like offensive superstar. And he can't pass the ball. He can't create good shots for himself. So you're not that. You're more of like a supporting piece. But he doesn't want to buy into that. So I don't know what they would trade him for. I don't know what they want. I don't know what they can even get. I don't even know what his market is. But I would be very surprised if he sees out that contract there. And I would be not I would not be surprised if they trade him as soon as this offseason because I just don't think it's working out for him there. I don't think they have a very good rapport with him. And he doesn't seem to be having a very good time there.
Yeah, I think that's like I think with Porzingis and Melo, their rookie year, I don't know. Like, do you think that maybe had some of the effect on Porzingis and his mindset on offense and the way he plays, and like kind of like ISO, I'm the star player of this team type regard, or do you think that's something he kind of just came into the league with?
Yeah, I mean, I think people have tried to say that. Like, I think it's bullshit. I think it lets him off the hook. I think
I
it's a
agree.
way of basically just saying like, oh, the Knicks ruined him. The Knicks didn't develop him. And that's horseshit because, he made it very clear that he had his own, off-season stuff that he wanted to do with his own coaches, his own trainers. And he did that, and that's what he wanted to do. And when Melo got traded, he was happy. He can deny. I know that they got along pretty okay, him and Melo,
Right.
and I know that like I don't think they had a bad relationship at all. I don't think it was a thing where he didn't get along with Melo, but I do think he wanted him to get traded. I think he wanted to be the man, and I think that was always kind of like his wish was to be the guy. And I do think that I don't think he always was this like delusional about it. Like I don't think he came into the NBA being like, I need to be the guy, I gotta be the superstar, I gotta be the franchise player. But I do think he got a lot of hype his rookie season. Like Knicks fans were desperate for a young player to I mean, to have some hope. He was the first. He was like the highest pick we had at that time since Ewing,
Yeah.
and he obviously came in, and there was a lot of like skepticism initially, but he looked really good as a rookie. Like people forget. I mean, as a rookie, he was a genuinely good NBA player, which is not, that's not
Not the
usually.
norm.
Yeah, that's not the norm. Like, I love RJ now. RJ is genuinely a good player right now, in his second season. But as a rookie, like he wasn't a good NBA player last year. He was a good rookie. I thought. I didn't understand why people were so down on him
Yeah,
after his
he's a
rookie
good
year.
rookie on a bad team, but
Yeah, he was a good rookie, but he wasn't a good player yet. KP was a good player as a rookie, and I think he like bought into. I think he was happy to be the second option initially, but like I said, I think that um, I think that he genuinely bought into all his hype, and he got a big head. I think it hasn't helped him that his agent is his brother, who seems like an idiot.
Yeah.
And seem like, I don't think that, there's a reason you don't always do business with family. Family, his brother probably has his best interest at heart, but it gets like, business is not supposed to be an emotional thing. And I have felt like a lot of times with KP, shit just gets really emotional, right? Like, his brother telling him to like skip the exit meeting. I'm assuming that his brother at least had some input on that.
Oh, he definitely put the battery in his back.
Yeah, like he skips the exit meeting, and then he is like posting stuff on IG when there are rumors about Phil Jackson listening to offers for him, and like, look, man, you can't skip an exit meeting. And then he obviously, like, his camp obviously leaked that to reporters, right? That was not the Knicks. That was not Phil. That was Porzingis' camp. And you know this because it literally got reported right after Phil Jackson had his end of year press conference, and he didn't mention it. So, and why would he? Why would he want to mention that? That doesn't help him in any way. But it got out there somehow. And I think it's pretty obvious to see who put it out there when you have Woj reporting it. I don't think Phil was leaking anything to Woj about it. And like, that's emotional stuff. Like like he's acting like so hurt that the Knicks are listening to trade offers for him. That's what's going to happen, man. Like, you're a really talented second-year player that teams around the NBA, like, they think that you can be a star. So of course they're going to make offers to the Knicks, and it's his job to listen to offers. That is literally the job of a president or a GM. And anybody that tells you that, XYZ players off the table, there's like 5 guys in the NBA that are ever off the table that are untradeable. Like, no way you're going to trade them. He's not ever been one of those guys. Better players than KP have been traded or have been in trade rumors. So I never got that. And, then he disappears to Latvia. He's mad at the organization, doesn't talk to them for the whole offseason. Then he does the stuff with Fizdale where he's like, if Fizdale said he's not sure if he's even running yet. And then he immediately posts a picture on IG of him sprinting.
Oh, yeah,
it's just like,
yeah.
like everything with him has always been super emotional. And it's like that. Like, you need to get better management because you can't handle business like that. And he's always handled it like that. And I think all this stuff in Dallas, it's all emotional bullshit, like, petty, childish stuff. And he's always behaved this way. So, like I said, I think I'm happy he's not our problem. I'm very happy that I was happy when we did the trade. I'm even more happy. I was happy with the trade at the time. I would have been fine keeping him at the time too. So I'm not gonna act like I was out there like demanding we trade him when they did.
Right.
But I was fine with the trade at the time, and I've increasingly over time felt better and better about the trade. I felt pretty damn good about it even last year. Just because, again, he picked up injuries. He had to be load managed. I know he like balled out in the bubble, but the bubble was bullshit, as we all know. And this year's been a complete disaster for him, to be honest. Even the bubble ended up being a disaster, right? Because he ended up having to get surgery after playing like 6.
He played like one playoff game against the Clippers and went down.
Yeah, he played like 6 games total. Yeah, like you said, played one playoff game. I know his offensive numbers were great, but they went 2-4 in the bubble with him. So it's not like they were exactly killing teams when KP was healthy too. And yeah, like I said, and this year, obviously, like now, I'm just could not be happier that we're not paying that guy. And I think that we have a lot of good professional dudes on this roster. I think we have a lot of guys that aren't super focused on petty bullshit. And maybe that helps that like there's kind of like an established hierarchy thing here, and RJ, but like, RJ could be he could do that, right? He could be like, I need to get more touches. He hasn't. He's actually been like extremely bought into playing as a complementary player in a lot of ways. Like, I know he's averaging 17.5 a game, but watch him play. Like, a lot of that stuff is just like spot up threes and stuff, right? He's not exactly dominating the ball and getting a shit ton of offensive reps like that. Which isn't to say he isn't getting any. He is getting some, but he's not the offensive centerpiece in any way. And he's not even like a 1 B till Randall's 1A, right? Like in a lot of ways, you could say he's the third option, given how Rose has been playing.
And sometimes the fourth if Reggie's shooting the shit.
Or if Quickly's on. Like, I just think that you have a lot better situation. It feels like the organization's in a way better place. And I just don't think even if you keep KP and you end up, hiring Tibbs and hiring this new front office and stuff, like, I just don't think I don't know. He just seemed all over the place. And I mean, there were reports. Obviously, he had his off court issue, which look, let's just say as soon as he left New York, that thing, he's in Dallas. Fortunate for him because there was no reporting on that afterwards. But there were even at the time of the trade, like right after, I remember listening to Ryan Russillo and Woj on their podcast, and they both were like, yeah, look, there's all off court stuff with Porzingis, and they wanted to get him out. And they obviously, people would dismiss that, but I think that there's obviously something there. He got into a bar fight in Latvia when he went home, got jacked in the face in his hometown. Like
that viral video,
yeah. So I don't know. Like I just, when it comes to KP, I am just could not be happier that he is not on the Knicks and he's not our problem.
Yeah, I think that's been the coolest thing this year, seeing that not like for the first 2 years, you kind of almost like, I know you said you were pretty okay with it, but I mean, I know a lot of fans really upset, obviously, about trading KP, but seeing now even the Dallas fans kind of come around to wanting to trade Porzingis has been like not rewarding necessarily, but it makes the trade feel much more justified looking back on it. All the reasons that you kind of like forced yourself to believe that it was a good trade at the time or being validated. But I mean, I don't know. I think that he's kind of like part of the problem with Porzingis in Dallas is kind of the problem that Tim Hardaway had here, is that they're both overpaid for what they can do right now. And if they were on better contracts on those teams, they could be players that contribute to winning in some, like there's a spot in the league for KP somewhere. I just don't know where there's a spot for KP in this league on the max contract.
Yeah, and I think like you mentioned with Tim Hardaway, he's been good for them. He was good for us too, to be honest. I just think that like
he's a little streaky.
His role, it depends on his role on the team.
Yeah, I mean that we put him in a position where he had to be like the number 2 option. And then when KP went down, he was the number 1 option, which like, that's never going to be a good situation for him. And then on top of that, like, Fizdale was a disaster. Fizdale had no idea what he was doing. And I think Hardaway, like, you just let him do whatever he wants, and he's going to literally do whatever he wants. It's not going to be great. So I would put that more on, the Knicks putting him in a position where he was asked to do too much and then saddling him with literally the worst coach I've ever watched in my life.
Like that year we brought in Aaron Aflalo.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to talk about KP, right? Because, KP with the injuries, he's not as much as as a defensive threat that he was before. He was like on his Noel shit. He was defending the rim at an elite level, covering a lot of space out there. And, now he just can't do that because of his injury history that he's had. Also, like, he's a good shooter for his size. He's not, if you look at his percentages and stuff like that, he's not like an elite shooter, right? He's not Pretends. He's not Duncan Robinson. He's not like one of these guys. So, it's interesting, right? And when you look at his value around the league, right? And I know you saying you don't know like what a team would give up for him. But, if I'm a team, say like Boston, right? They're looking for a center. I wouldn't give more than 1 first-round pick. I know Dallas is probably going to be asking for what they gave up. It's going to be hard to get that. On the open market, Swin, real quick, give us like, and say like they were shopping him this summer. What do you think teams are willing to give up for him?
That's a good question. Would like, I mean, I think I mentioned this on our podcast from the weekend, but like, would the Warriors even do Wiggins for Porzingis at this point? Like, I
would
genuinely
Dallas do that though?
I don't know. Like, I have no idea. I mean, at least Wiggins, whatever you want to say about him, he's on the court every single night. That guy's durable. He's played the vast majority. I think he's played almost like 95% of the games that he's been available for, like that have occurred since he's been in the NBA. So like he's played consistently. He's always healthy. Had a pretty good season. I don't know, would they do that? I don't even know what the hell Dallas would. I think Dallas would either want to get off if they could get off the money, and get like a pick back, like trade him into somebody's space. I think they'd probably prefer that. But who the hell is going to do that? Who the hell is just going to be like, okay, yeah, we'll take Porzingis into cap space for a first round pick? Like, who even has cap space like that this offseason, you know? And who are you clearing cap space for? I don't know. I genuinely have no clue what his market would look like. Maybe a team like Portland, maybe some capped out team that needs a center. Maybe a team like the Hornets. They don't have a 5.
Yeah, their center situation is the worst in the league.
Yeah, they generally don't have a 5. I think they have all their future first. Maybe they'd trade a first for him. I could see that. I think that's probably like I think that might be the most realistic one.
Yeah, it's actually good fit.
Maybe a team like Detroit that just doesn't have a lot going for it. Maybe a team.
He would hate it in Detroit.
Oh, I know, and that'd be good. That'd be the best part. I think I think a team like maybe
DSJ reunited.
I think maybe a team like OKC. They have they have a ton of cap space. They have
all the
5 billion picks. Maybe him. Maybe I was just thinking about other.
I was thinking Boston because of the fit. He could go right there in center, But like you said, the cap situation doesn't really work out.
Tough for Boston, yeah.
Yeah, OKC is one. I could see that. I could see like maybe Houston.
You see, the Hornets is a good situation, right? Because the Hornets, so. they don't have the appeal for free agents to come in, right? So like you said, like you saw with Gordon Hayward, they had to overpay him way more than what the Knicks were trying to give him, way more what the Indiana was trying to give him. Maybe they overpay him, they overpay Dallas a little bit, and they bring in another complimentary piece to put in with LaMelo and that core that they have over there. Interesting, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be a really good fit for him. And that's kind of my thinking, like them or OKC as SGA, so maybe he would like that. I don't know. I could see maybe New Orleans. I don't know. Maybe they trade Steven Adams to Dallas or something, and they have some picks. Maybe they give up a pick for Porzingis and Zion. Maybe you do something like that. I don't know. But I mean, I think someone will ultimately trade for him because there's always the upside. Like he does have upside. You'll always have somebody that believes like, oh, well, our medical staff is going to get him right, and our coach and how we use him. Because like he's a 7'3" guy who can shoot threes, and that's a pretty tempting thing for a lot of teams in the NBA. But I think the Spurs are another one. Who do they have? Their bigs suck. They got Pirtle. I think that's the only big they have that matters.
They have Drew Eubanks, whatever his name is, who dunked on Giannis' brother.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, they have a ton of cap space this offseason. So, and we know that they were interested in Porzingis back when he was in New York. We know that. That was like a reported fact. So that's definitely that would be another situation that would be interesting for him. And obviously Pop has a strong track record with all kinds of players. But he's obviously done a lot with European players, right? Or foreign players anyway. When you look at like Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili and guys like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Switching gears, enough with this Dallas talk. Switching gears to another team that we just instinctively hate, the Pacers. I wanted to talk about the Pacers because, since the All-Star break, they've been 16 and 17, below 500. Not the usual competitive team that we see year in and year out. They had a lot of injuries this year. TJ Warren, which I'm a big fan of his game, he went down at the beginning of the year. Miles Turner has been in and out with injury. That Oladipo has just been a mess for them in the beginning of the season, causing them to lose a few games. As far as the Pacers, Swin, how do you feel, right? Because usually they're more of a competitive team. They made the Karis LeVert trade, which is I think was very beneficial for them, replacing just a fresh young wing with a lot of upside. I don't know how you feel about Swin, but about Karis LeVert, but there's a lot of hate on Karis LeVert for some reason. I don't understand why. He's a great player with a lot of still a lot of upside, even though he's in almost like I think he's like 24, 25.
He's 27.
Oh, he's 20. God damn. Okay, so all right, damn. But I still like him as a player for him to be for him to replace Oladipo. They were very active in the trade deadline. Rumors say they were trying to get off Malcolm Brogdon's contract. They were trying to load off some pieces. There was a viral video, on Twitter that went everywhere about, the assistant coach and one of their lottery picks from 2 years ago going back and forth about, effort on the court. Been a mess down there in Indiana. How do you feel about that whole situation? I don't know if you've been paying attention.
I guess yeah, I mean the Pacers, it feels like they need to they just feel like they need a major shakeup again. Obviously the coach, there was all kinds of reporting that came out last week that he's probably going to get canned at the end of the season in all likelihood. It seems like they have a lot of players that I don't know, it just like they have a lot of guys that have missed time this year. I think TJ Warren has he basically missed the entire season?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He's out. Levert, yeah, I mean, look, they got Levert for a guy who was going to leave at the end of the season anyway. So, kudos to them. That's fine. I'm not his biggest fan. I think he's a good player, but
you don't think he has any more? You don't think he could get a little bit better? I know he's 27, but I don't know. I really do like Harris Levert's game. I really do.
I mean, I like his game is fine. I like him. I think he's a good player. I just, like, what is he going to be? People are like, he's not going to be a star. He is what he is. He's a good player. He's a good player. He can be a starter. He can be an awesome sixth man on a contender or something like that. But he's not a star, and that's fine. That they got a good player for a guy who's going to walk, who has barely played, by the way, in Miami, and has looked terrible for most of the season. So they still did a good job getting him. I don't know, like what are you trying to do with this team? It just feels like they have you have all this money committed to Levert now. You have money committed to Brogdon. TJ McConnell's a free agent this year. I think they really want to keep him. So you're going to pay 3 guys that handle the ball a ton. Like, it feels like somebody's going to be out there. And if it was somebody out of those 3, unless they just choose to let McConnell walk, which maybe they do. But I feel like Brogdon is the one that makes sense to move, just because like they brought him in to help them compete. And I just don't think they're really anywhere close to competing. Turner and Sabonis, that fit has never been great. They've made the best of it. They made it as good of it as they can, but it's still not great. It's never going to be great. They don't have any star talent on that team. Like, I guess Sabonis is like a borderline star, but like, how good can you be if he's essentially going to be the 5? I don't know.
Defensively, it doesn't really look that good, right? With him with the 5.
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly what they're doing, but I do think they're going to shake it up this offseason. And it might be in a major way. Maybe it ends up being just more fringe moves, letting guys walk, stuff like that. But I think that they're a team that to definitely watch.
No, for sure. And it's interesting, right? Because when me and Nolan first started the podcast, he was saying on now he was willing to bring on TJ Warren onto the Knicks on a reasonably cheap deal and bring him in and see if he could come back from injury. Also, we was talking about Miles Turner, on how, like, if the Knicks are able to get their hands on him, he could come in and replace Noel, maybe compete with Mitch for that starting spot, because he has been up there in the top 5 in shot blocking the past 2-3 years. He also has developed a 3-point shot, which is ideal in today's NBA. Nolan, how you feel about the Pacers situation?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I really like TJ Warren as a player. I mean, I know a lot of people kind of overhyped him when you tried to compare him to Kawhi there for a little bit because of his hair. But, like, I mean, he's a solid player. I think earlier on in the year, when I was less optimistic on what the Knicks season was going to be, that it made a little more sense to take on a project like that. Right now, I don't think I'd be. I mean, it would depend on what the deal was to get him and what his contract was like. But I really like Miles Turner. I think if you got him here, you would have to get rid of Mitch and Noel. I don't think there's any way you could afford to keep two of those. But I think honestly he'd be a really good fit next to Randall in the front court. And I mean, Pacers, like you guys said, they just really don't seem like they have a full direction. I mean, Miles Turner can be your center, and you play Sabonis and Warren, and I guess then, what's the point guard's name?
Brogdon?
Yeah, Brogdon. I always forget Brogdon. Yeah, I mean, it's not like a horrible team, but I mean, it's a middle of the pack Eastern Conference team, and you see teams like Orlando kind of float around that area for a few years and then just end up blowing it up. And it's just like, would you rather have your team blow it all up or just like be vaguely competitive for a few years? And I guess there's value to both.
I mean, I think it's fine to be vaguely competitive. It's just like, do you have a path to get somewhere better than
Right.
that? And they don't really. Like, I don't see like how they get there unless they start taking, major risks. Like, hey, maybe you start packaging first and throwing in Brogdon and some young guy. I don't even know like who they have, but and maybe you try to get in on Bradley Beal or something like that. But it's like, I don't think that's realistic for them. So I mean, maybe like you just mentioned, Orlando, not a bad idea to take a page out of their book and go with it with what they did. Just blow it up, clean up your cap space, get some extra first round picks in, and start a rebuild. Like I mean, Orlando's they're far away from being actually good, but they got some nice young pieces now, and Isaac and Fultz will be back next year, so it's intriguing to see what they have. And they obviously have those first round picks, which is nice. They got 2 from Chicago, they got 1 from Denver. I know that one doesn't convey until a little later, but you have those things that's nice, and that gives you some time to figure out what you have with the young guys you do have, and see where to go from there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because the Pacers, they like their model, right? Their franchise model is just to stay competitive. And that would drove Paul George insane. They didn't really trade Paul George until they had to. Paul George emphasized on how like he didn't really believe in the culture over there. They just wanted to stay competent.
I think his beef was that they never took a risk to go trade for like another star to pair with him. And yeah, like if you want to be competitive, that's cool. But at some point you have to understand that like, guys are going to be annoyed if it's just like, so the plan is to just be like 45 wins and hope that someday we draft some superstar in like the 20s or something, like, I don't know. It's not a very inspiring plan.
And also, I believe the Pacers are hesitant because if it backfires and they're into the shitter, their sales are going to go down, and their team is not going to be doing as well, money wise as they would doing if they stay competitive every year out. And I think they look at it that way too with the owners. It's a rough situation if you're a star in Indiana, right? Definitely is.
Yeah,
Uh,
100%.
Switching gears, I wanted to one last topic before I let you go, Swin. I wanted to talk about the Westbrook. Westbrook, he broke the triple double record. Just from we were talking about it. Me and Nolan are big fans of Westbrook. Just I know he doesn't shoot the best percentages, but the effort on the court and just looking at it from an athlete's perspective, man, averaging a triple double is insane, dog. Like the wear and tear on your body every night to go out there, man, it's not as easy as it looks. And he has, he's iconic in the reference on, he made it regular. He made it almost like almost a regular thing. We don't really care if a guy has a triple double now because of what Westbrook has done. How do you feel about Westbrook's career? We talk about it. Me and Lona, we spoke about it. Swin, how you feel about his career overall this season? Are you a Westbrook fan, man?
I have not been a Westbrook fan, but I think he deserves respect for just like, he always plays, pedal to the metal. That has its drawbacks, which that's kind of why I'm not a huge fan of his. But, like I think this season's a perfect example where like it would have been easy for them at various points to just, for him anyway, to just quit and like be like, all right, well, we're 8 games back or whatever, how far back they were, and we're struggling and I'm playing like shit. And, he had to basically play himself back into shape because he had he's coming off, he had COVID before the bubble. Then I think he had, he also had a quad injury. So he was still playing himself back into shape and stuff like that. And, you know, uh, things were not great to start the season in Washington, right? And they fell into a major hole. There's all these tweets constantly about Bradley Beal looking sad. And he didn't quit, and he just kept going and going and going and going. And, like some of those stat lines he's putting up right now are just ridiculous. Like, I can't even wrap my brain around them sometimes. What did he have last night? Like 28, 12, 22 or something like that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's just like crazy, some of the lines. I think I saw like last month he averaged something like 25, 17, and 13 or something, which is, again, I can't even wrap my head around that. So I don't know. Like, I'm not his biggest fan. I do think that like there's always has been a ceiling with him in some ways, just because of his shot selection and inability to really become ever a really good 3-point shooter, or even an average 3-point shooter. But he obviously is a good NBA player, and he's still a good NBA player, which I did not think he was still. So credit to him for that. And I guess good for him. Like he's at least he's playing for something. Because John Wall is not playing for anything, and that's the guy obviously they traded to get Russ.
I forgot he was in the league. God damn.
I know, right? But yeah, like Russ, he always finds a way to be relevant, and like forget about how you felt about him before or any of that shit. But like what he's been doing for the past month is just fun. Like it's pretty awesome. And he deserves credit for that because, like I said, I think a lot of people, not just me, a lot of people thought he was cooked.
I definitely did.
Yeah, I thought he was done, man. I thought after the first couple of months this season, I was like, oh man, this guy's completely done. But he keeps grinding, he keeps coming at you, and good for him. Like, hopefully they beat the Hawks.
Yeah.
No,
They won by one yesterday.
Yeah, that's a classic Westbrook thing, right? Like they haven't been able to stop him the entire night getting to the rim, and he settles for a pull-up jumper with like 3 seconds left.
I think it's interesting when you say that a lot of fans thought he was cooked. I had still optimism for that because remember in the playoffs he had hurt his quad, and then in the beginning of this year he had caught COVID. And if you look at athletes, NFL, MLB, whatever, like it takes them a while for them to get back into what they was previously before, conditioning wise and all that. So, I think it's important when you look at Westbrook, this first half of the year, just take it with a grain of salt just because of all that stuff. The quad injury, it is very tedious type of injury, right? Because it takes a while for you to get back, and you don't know if you're back 100%, so you get on the court and then you might have setbacks. So when I looked at that, when I hear fans say his first half of the season wasn't, people thought he was cooked, it's like, relax, because Jason Tatum, he had a slow first of the year and then he turned it on. And Westbrook, now he's turning it on. And it's interesting because me and Nolan, we were talking about how Beal and Westbrook, they're dynamic duo this year, and if Beal is willing to do another year of this, and how do you feel about that, Swin? Because we were adamant on saying on how Beal should give Russ another chance just because of that stuff.
Yeah, I don't think Beal's going anywhere this offseason. They've made it pretty clear that they don't want to trade him. I think he is being completely honest when he says that he doesn't want to be traded. And yeah, I think that Russ turning it on, like for sure, like they gives them a little bit of hope that, hey, like maybe, now Russ has played himself back into shape. He's not suffering from the after effects of COVID. They can come back next season and, they pick up where they left off kind of thing. So maybe they end up becoming like a, 5 seed, 6 seed, whatever. And maybe they can make one more trade, and there's just a little bit more hope than there was before anyway. So yeah, I don't think Beal is going to be forcing a trade anyway. I think that ultimately if he leaves, it'll be as a free agent in 2022 or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. Nolan, final thoughts on that?
Pretty much the same. I mean, yeah, I don't really have much to add to that, to be honest. I mean, we kind of touched on it last time. I think they'll be in. I don't think they'll be in the play in next year if they add a few pieces. I think they can actually make it into the top 8 for sure.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Swin, I appreciate you coming on the Corner Three, brand new podcast in the Knicks community. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you. Make sure to check out Swin and the Strickland. Great content for Knicks fans. I check out that content pretty often. Make sure to check out Swin on Twitter, Strickland on Twitter, and we'll catch you guys next episode.